thinking about what to talk about today. I mean, my specialty is very obvious, and it's weight loss, but I wanted to make it relevant to a lot of people, and specifically to women. But I think a lot of people have tackled this area multiple times. And so one disclaimer I have at the very beginning is that there's a lot of association with weight and societal expectations. And those are really hard for people. So what I want to try to do is ignore what society wants us to do. I mean, always, but specifically about weight. Ignore society's expectations and the shame and the judgment and the guilt a lot of times that comes along with weight. And we're going to talk about weight really from a health perspective, because fits so well with the last talk is that weight and exercise really do affect your overall health, and that's what we're concerned about. So 73% of women, 3/4 of us in this room, have attempted weight loss with an average of 7 attempts in our lifetime. That's a lot. That's a lot of hard work. Another study found that at any given time, about 50% of women are on a diet. So half of this room might be trying to lose some weight. In the 1970s, about 14% of US adults were obese, classified as obese medically. Now it's about 40%. So we're trying really hard and it's not working. So I wanted to talk about maybe why, and then we could try to reverse this trend. So how did this happen? Well, if we're talking the span of 30 years, that's way too rapid for this to be a genetic change. It's only really one generation. So this was likely the change of our environment. So we have to look at how the environment's impacting our weight. I'm going to ask you to hang in here with me for another second, and I'm going to make an assumption. My assumption is that weight gain largely is the result of consuming more calories than you burn. I am very aware that weight is much more complicated than that, but that's where we're going to start because I don't have 12 hours. So we're going to go with the calories in, calories out theory. So for the calories outside, what has changed? Where are we expending fewer calories? So in the 1960s, about half of all jobs in the United States required moderate intensity physical activity. Now only about 20% do. That's about 100 fewer calories burned at our jobs per capita. 100 calories a day can add up to about 10 pounds a year. Additionally, technology has made our lives easier in some ways, harder in others, but easier in some ways, physically easier. So who ever used a vacuum cleaner that was not self-propelled? A lawnmower that was not self-propelled? These things push themselves now, so it's easier. In fact, your vacuum can vacuum while you're not there. Everything's easier. Laundry's easier. Most people have a washer and a dryer. No more hanging our laundry to dry. No more scrubbing or hand washing. Driving's easier. Cars are all power steering. I have my first car. It's a 76 AMC Pacer. It's a terrible car. But it had power nothing, and it was really hard to drive. My car now, I can just tell it what to do most of the time. So unless you want to go back to the days of no airbags, there are some things that we're not going to change. In 1978, only 8% of households had microwaves, and now about 90% do. I want to know who these 10% of people are, though. So unless you want to go back to hand washing, pushing your own lawnmower, driving a car that's maybe not safe actually anymore, we have to look at other ways to change. So for the calories inside, now we're talking about food. Pew data, it's a big polling center, found that we're consuming about 450 more calories a day since the 1970s. And 400 of these 450 come from added grain products and fat, most of the grain being wheat. Don't fool yourself that gluten-free is healthier, unless you have celiac disease. A lot of gluten-free products are actually higher in sugar and have been linked to increased risk of developing diabetes. Then that rest of the 50 calories comes from sugar, which actually I would have thought that would have been higher. So where are these calories being added? Is it all over? Are there specific places? And there are specific places. So about half of those extra calories are coming in the form of snacks. About 220 more calories per day. So if we cut 220 calories a day from the top, that could result in a 23-pound weight loss, which is a lot for most people. So we are now having 580 calories in snacks a day. Here are my props. I have 580 calories of snacks. Cheetos, a baby Coke, fruit snacks, and I will mention these are unicorn fruit snacks, and a Snickers. And you're thinking, but I don't eat garbage like that. I got you covered. Elenos with granola. I know. Some grapes and some pistachios. That's also 580 calories. I am aware that is not nutritionally the same. And if it's extra, it's extra. So it's not just about eating junk food, but it is about paying attention because there are sneaky things. I'm a big fan. It's really high in sugar. I probably will eat that later today, don't worry about it. So why is this so hard? Well, food manufacturers are actually doing it on purpose. And we'll talk about why, or not why, you know why, to sell products. We'll talk about how. So when we were eating whole, unprocessed foods, fruits and vegetables, the more nutritious food actually tasted better. So riper fruits and vegetables contained more nutrients, and they had a stronger flavor. So in the past, it was really important for us to prefer, those palatable, those highly flavorful foods because they conferred health benefits. But now, they don't. And it's the opposite because we're eating a lot of processed, artificially flavored foods. And so those don't have any extra nutrition, but they are flavorful. So this is where science came in and did us a couple of disservices. So there's a food scientist named Stephen Witherly who wrote a book called Why Humans Like Junk Food. And he's a food scientist, so he's also creating these foods. So he's aware and capitalizing on this. So he found that there are certain things humans love, and then they've developed foods around these. So we're going to use nacho cheese Doritos as an example. So first of all, when you chew on the chips, they kind of melt in your mouth. And that's what scientists have called vanishing caloric density. Your brains don't, mine too, our brains don't register those calories as calories, so we don't get full on them. So it's this like invisible calories. Our brain kind of keeps a tally on what we're eating and will tell us to stop unless the food's sneaky. So other foods that are similar, popcorn, Cheetos, Puffs, and cotton candy. Whoever got full on cotton candy? Yeah, you'll throw up first. Next comes fats. So we really like fat too. And they found that the sort of golden ratio for human addiction is 50%. Because fat stimulates pleasure centers in your brain, it also feels nice in your mouth. And how our food feels in our mouth is an important part of the eating experience. Additionally, there's cheese, salt, garlic, and MSG in the chips. They have this really strong savory flavor, but it's also a little bit vague. It's hard to describe, which means that also kind of vanishes from our brains and avoids this flavor boredom that can occur. With things like Cheetos, you'll actually get bored of the taste eventually because they're all pretty similar. Something like Doritos, where they have lots of flavors, you're less likely to do that. Additionally, all that salt makes you want to drink some water. So you drink some water and start all over again. So the final thing, and you actually can see it in these foods up here, is humans really we're attracted to red and yellow in colors. Yeah, they're not those colors by accident, and neither are the nacho Doritos. So the whole world is against us. Technology's made things easier and harder. So what do? Well, let's start with the calories outside. And this, again, goes very nicely with that last talk. Only about 5% of US adults are getting the 30 minutes a day that we need of exercise. And some studies show that if you have lost significant weight, you actually have to do more activity in order to keep it off. So for people who've lost weight, they need to do about 300 minutes, which sounds like a lot all at once. So what do you do 150 or 300 minutes sounds daunting. It's like, I can't start there, so don't start there. Start with 10 minutes and work up. So 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening of walking. Lots of good tips mentioned earlier. Take the stairs, park further away, all those little things. Our electronics have us connected and can make us feel more isolated. So getting social support on these things can help as well. Joining in a Facebook group or a challenge at work, take an exercise class, find something you like. That's my best advice for exercise. If you like it, you'll do it. If you don't like it, it's gonna be hard to find the time. So try new things, get social support, have technology work for you. There are video games, Wii Fit and Dance Dance Revolution and all kinds of things that make you work. There's all kinds of apps. There's an exercise called the 7-minute workout, and there's an app for it. It takes 7 minutes, surprisingly enough. It works every major muscle group in your body, and it'll get your heartbeat elevated, and it doesn't take any equipment. So there's also this idea of something called temptation bundling. And the idea is that you pair something you don't like with something you do like. And the best example of this is exercise and watching TV. So if you have an elliptical, if you have a treadmill, I have a treadmill, it's really boring. It's really boring. But I also have Netflix. So it's helpful to save a show that you really enjoy and tell yourself you can only watch it when you're on the treadmill. You can only watch it when you're on the elliptical, or you have to do the 7-minute workout in the commercials. Something that gives you motivation to complete that activity. And the other thing is setting SMART goals, I think, is really important. So a SMART goal is, it's a mnemonic, so specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time limited. So a lot of people say, I want to get in shape. What's that mean? How do you measure that? And how long is that going to take you? But you could say, I want to be able to run a 5K. There's one in my neighborhood in 3 months. Great. Has all of those things. It's specific, it's realistic, there's a timestamp on it. It's a lot easier to measure. So now onto foods. There's an easy thing for me to say, very hard to do, and likely not helpful thing people hear all the time, and that is, oh, eat lean meats and veggies. Bet you never thought of that. So that's not a practical solution. So try cooking dinner at home more. Try eating fewer processed foods. Try cutting out snacking. Even healthy snacks can really add up. Again, technology can work for you on this one. MyFitnessPal is helpful to track calories, and tracking calories is a very tedious thing. Anyone who's dieted, I'm sure, has done it. There's a Weight Watchers app. There's a million apps. But start small with that as well. So try just tracking how many calories you eat in snacks. See what that adds up to. See if maybe that could be changed a little bit to impact your overall picture. Finally, I think the next speaker was also going to be very helpful, and that's someone that's going to talk about mindful eating, because paying attention to what you're eating and also how it makes you feel is so important. So, quick tips to summarize all of that would be, weight loss is really hard. But there are practical small things you can do every day. So try to cut down on snacking. Avoid liquid calories. A latte is about 200 calories. And a lot of times we just feel like, oh, it's just a coffee. Black coffee is just a coffee. And then finally, try to add protein to every meal. And I know that's not really one I had mentioned before, but that's really important for all of us for overall health, but it also makes you feel a little bit more full in the long term. And then I just wanted to add a little note about physical activity. So I'm a runner, which a lot of times when I say that, I see people roll their eyes because they're like, well, of course you are. That's obnoxious. I haven't always been. I actually didn't start until I was about 35, after I had my baby. And I signed up to do this 5K obstacle course with my sisters. If anyone has siblings, you know how that goes. I didn't want to be a slow one. So I started running, and initially I hated it. I was the president of Running Sucks. But now I love it, and it was hard, but now I love it. I found an activity I want to do, that I make time for. But running is not it for everyone. I get it. So find something you love, and it gets a lot easier. Thank you.